Hello Mayhem Makers, I'm Mindy with Quilting Mayhem, and today we are doing a cream and sugar tutorial. We're working on the Starshine setting number 2. So you're taking the other half of your blocks and we're just creating kind of the surrounding accent to those blocks. So if you've already done setting number 1, pretty much the same stuff. You're just making the kind of what I call a support triangle, or the star extra points, a little differently. So this one, a little more going on, but really it's not complicated. We're doing a half square triangle and then we're just attaching triangles. So this one's fairly easy. And then what you'll do is you'll make 2 that look like this, and you will have 2 that have the blocks on the end, and just attach them to your other set of these blocks that you have made. So hopefully you've got these all caught up, and you're just going to add this extra piece on. All right, so the first step, half square triangles. Are you tired of these yet? We just keep making them. You should be pros by now. So draw your line, wrong side of whatever's the lighter fabric, and then sew 1/4 inch from either side of the line. And then you're going to cut them apart and press them so you can add those triangles. Now remember, your fabric's different than mine because I made the quilt, and so now I'm just kind of using scraps, leftovers, and adding some fun new fabrics. So my second one looks a little different. I'm going to trim my threads. So there. See, we've just sewn either side. We're going to cut that apart and press it. Now do make sure that you trim. So once you press these open, you want to make sure they're the right size. They should be a little generous. You might need to trim some down, especially if you made the squares a little bit bigger like I suggested at the beginning of this sew along, because I prefer to trim down as opposed to taking my chances that because I did that 3/8 measurement, it should be dead on. Yeah, I don't know about you, but my sewing's never that perfect that I'm dead on to what they say. So my preference is be a little generous and just trim. So a little starch spray on that seam. Give those guys a good press. Now, the nice thing about this one is also all these triangle pieces are the same. So last setting one, number 1, you had to be mindful of it being opposite. So you did kind of half and half. This one, you can sew them all the same. So we're going to do some trimming over here. My little 4.5 square. You know I love this guy. And these guys are getting trimmed to 3 inches. Going to behave. And I'm just lining up this diagonal line, making sure that it's on the 3, and just trimming off that little bit of excess. So this is why I do my squares a little bigger, so I have just that little bit amount, so that I can make sure that this guy is what it's supposed to be. I don't like going later on going, oh, it's 2 7/8, 2 and however many 16ths. This gives me better accuracy. And then just lay these out per the design. So you want to make sure these triangles and this is kind of centered in that triangle. And then just pick a direction, lay right sides together, line them up, do your 1/4 inch, press, and repeat. Like I said, this one's pretty easy. I am still doing all my seams where they're pressed open. If you are pressing one direction, this is one where, yeah, you want to press either to this darker piece or whatever side's less bulky. Because the key is to reduce bulk. And then you can decide. So I'm gonna grab my scissors. There's this little dog ear that's gonna get in the way. So you need to take your scissors and just trim it straight off. Because then you're going to take and finish that triangle, right? So we're gonna make B go to C type of thing. All right, same thing, line up those edges. And so I'm lining up on that 90, and I'm just gonna let that dog ear, should be some at the end. Should be about a 1/4 inch at that end, right? Sew that and press it open. I need to cut this other one, get these other ones going so we can show you how they're put onto the bigger triangle, because that's going to be the next step. Is you're going to take that triangle and we're going to put it on the big guy, right? So we'll try to catch up real quick, because you know me, I try to not bore you guys by making you just watch me sew. I just don't find that as exciting, maybe to. So same thing, we're laying these guys out. You gotta remember that when I wear whatever before filming, that I have a color that makes it so you can see, makes a good backdrop. I don't think I did that well. Apparently I decided to be in the color of cream to go with the cream and sugar video. So I'm gonna start doing that so I can just press both of these at the same time. Alright. This guy, get him going. And then, so this is what we have. Once again, you can trim this little dog ear here. Just trim him out of the way so that when you're trying to line up straight lines, that's not sticking out and throwing you off. It is an unnecessary part. You end up with all kinds of little triangles all over your sewing room when you do these types of projects. All of those little dog ears everywhere. Don't ask me why they're called dog ears. That's how they've always been. I guess you could call them cat ears if you wanted. If you're a cat person. Do that. Alright. So, you're going to take this guy and this guy, and we're just going to attach, right? So, the key piece is I made sure to attach and line up. This is definitely one I'll recommend you guys pin. So pin at the top and at the bottom. Because once again, we're working with a lot of bias. Bias likes to be stretchy and a little unruly. And you are going to have, so this is going to match up nice and pretty. Once again, you're going to have that little bit of dog ear at the end. Right, and that's what you want. So down at the center of the triangle is where that excess is going to overhang. If you have some sort of overhang up here, you lined it up incorrectly. Redo. But do those pins, keep it under control. Because the last thing you need is everything just kind of stretching as you go. I'm just making sure these lines stay straight over here. So just a little finger maneuvering. I stop, I make sure it's lined up. We're not losing anything in the process. Right? Still have my little dog ear here. I'm just going to hold on to it and get to the end. And then we're going to press that bad boy. Alright, so here we go. And snipping of the threads. All right, hopefully that made a little more sense. Give it a press. And yes, I use a lot of steam. Good hot steam. And a lot of best press. All right, so there's 1/2. Once again, you can trim that guy out. Just take your scissors, trim him, because you want to make sure this whole line is straight, that you don't get thrown off by any extra bits. Okay, so number 2 was finished. So we're going to attach it. Same thing. We're going to make sure this top corner is all matched up. All right. And we're going to use pins. Just one at the beginning. We're going to line it up. If you're new, feel free, you can put one in the middle, just to make sure it stays lined up. And then one down here at the end, and you should still, once again, have just that little bit of dog ear hanging over. That's how you know. Now, 1/4 inch seam. And away we go. So then we're going to press it, and that guy should be done. And it's ready. After you do those steps, you're just going to attach them to your blocks that you already have made the first 5 months, 6 months, wherever we're at. All right. Ta-da! Woohoo! Now measure this guy out. It does maybe give you a measure. Yes, so it should be 5.5 by 10.5. I found mine actually were a little not quite 10.5, and that's okay, because I can pin them to the block and give them just a little pull, and that's just because of all this bias. Things get kind of sucked in where you don't want them. If they're a little taller, they're a little higher than 5.5. Generally, when I do any kind of little bit of trimming, I do try to make sure that these bottom parts down here are 1/4 inch. So my trimming generally makes sure that this 1/4 inch is still good. If there's any extra waviness, I kind of true that up. I can show you what that looks like. Let me grab a ruler. Hold on. Let's see how this goes. Let's see how accurate I am this morning. All right. Get rid of the mess. Oof. All right. So when you go to measure, let's make sure we get you here. You can tell it's fall in Washington. Everything is getting darker, so I had to bring extra lights. All right. Oh, look at today. I'm doing pretty good. Yay! So there is a little bit extra here. So what's nice with this ruler, so this is the Creative Grid 6.5 by 12.5. If you don't have this in your room, must have. Okay, this is a go-to. It has this nice diagonal line here, and so I'm lining it up so it's kind of on this corner, running my diagonal line, but I'm also being mindful. This is my 5.5 line, my 10.5 line, so trying to get everything to line up. Now, I know my OCD ones out there. I know who you are. This you'll struggle with. You will potentially have to be okay with some of your points not necessarily being quite as perfect as you try to be. And we're just learning to let go of some of those things, because working with bias can be very frustrating until you get a lot of practice with it. They may be slightly off, and please be okay with that, or you're going to be redoing this block again, and that's not a lot of fun. I like getting the quilts done, so thankfully this one's pretty good. I have a little bit of excess down here, and then this corner really isn't too bad. This corner meets up right here. So I'm really just taking off any little excess plus these dog ears. I'm unfortunately a little short in here, but that'll be okay. That I can make kind of work as I sew the blocks together. And then flip it around, and we're going to do the same thing. But because we know that these two sides essentially are where they need to be, I can now line them up exactly at my 5.5 and 10.5, and then do any trimming. But I am trying to be mindful that like this point here and this point here are a 1/4 inch. This one I may lose a little bit, but not enough that it should matter in the block in the end. And once again, that's just kind of a matter of working with this bias and all that jazz. So a little bit coming off, thankfully not too much. But by doing that, this will make sure, if you get it to cut like it should, this will make sure that you don't get as much unevenness down the road with your quilt. So definitely check these. If they're way off, call me. All right, reach out to me, email me, and we'll have a one-on-one session and talk about maybe why, what might be the struggle. So this may be the hardest one so far. So be mindful of that. Don't get frustrated, but it's super cute. All right, just attach them to your box and you're off and running, and we'll see you next month. Hope you're having a great day. Keep on stitching.